Welcome, dear friends. As we gather here in this moment, I invite you to allow your attention to settle gently into the present. There is nowhere else we need to be, nothing else we need to do except to be fully here, fully present with what is arising now. Perhaps you have come to this space because you are tired of the endless stream of thoughts that moves through your mind like a river that never stops flowing. You may have noticed that your mind seems to have a life of its own, generating thoughts, worries, plans, and stories without any conscious direction from you. This is what I call compulsive thinking, and it is one of the greatest sources of human suffering. The mind, which is meant to be a wonderful tool for navigating the practical aspects of life, has in many cases become the master instead of the servant. It chatters away continuously, commenting on everything, analyzing every situation, creating problems where none exist, and pulling you away from the simple peace that is your natural state. But here is something beautiful that you may not have noticed. Between one thought and the next, there is a space. Between the ending of one mental movement and the beginning of another, there is a gap. This gap, this space between thoughts, is not empty. It is alive, it is conscious, it is peace itself. And it is always here, always available, always waiting for you to discover it. Right now, as you listen to these words, see if you can notice this space. Don't try to stop your thoughts. That would be another form of mental activity. Simply observe. Watch the thoughts as they arise and pass away, and notice the brief intervals of silence between them. This space is your doorway to freedom from the tyranny of the thinking mind. The invitation is not to become someone who never thinks, but to become someone who is no longer enslaved by thinking. When you discover this space between thoughts, you discover something that has always been here, the stillness, the peace, the presence that you are beneath the constant mental activity. In this space, there is no problem to solve, no past to regret, no future to worry about. There is only the pure awareness that is your deepest nature, the consciousness in which all thoughts arise and into which they dissolve. This is the beginning of awakening, not as some distant spiritual achievement, but as the recognition of what you already are. So let us begin this journey together, not by trying to stop the mind, but by discovering the space that is always present within and around every thought. This space is not something you create, it is something you recognize. It is not something you achieve, it is something you surrender into. It is not something you become, it is something you already are. The human mind, in its current state of development, has an almost compulsive need to think. It generates thoughts continuously, often without any conscious direction or purpose. These thoughts arise like clouds in an endless sky, and most humans have become so identified with this mental activity that they believe they are their thoughts. But you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are simply mental phenomena that arise in the field of awareness, just as sounds arise in the field of hearing, or sensations arise in the field of feeling. They come and go, they appear and disappear, they are born and they die. But the awareness in which they arise remains constant, unchanging, eternal. There is a fundamental difference between functional thinking and dysfunctional thinking. Functional thinking is when the mind is used as a tool to accomplish a specific task, planning a meal, solving a practical problem, communicating with another person. This type of thinking has a clear beginning and end, a specific purpose, and it serves life. Dysfunctional thinking, on the other hand, is thinking that has no real purpose except to perpetuate itself. It is the mind commenting on everything, creating stories about past events, imagining future scenarios, judging what is happening right now, comparing, analyzing, worrying, planning for problems that may never occur. This type of thinking is compulsive. It happens automatically, without conscious choice, and it often creates more problems than it solves. The voice in your head may be telling you right now that thinking is necessary, that without constant mental activity, you wouldn't be able to function in the world. But this is not true. The greatest insights, the most creative solutions, the most appropriate responses to life's challenges arise not from compulsive thinking, but from the stillness and clarity that emerge when the mind becomes quiet. When you observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them, you begin to notice certain patterns. You may see that the same thoughts arise again and again, that the mind tends to replay certain scenarios, that it creates problems that don't actually exist in this moment. You may notice that much of your mental activity is repetitive, unnecessary, and often harmful to your peace of mind. This is not a criticism of thinking itself. Thinking is a beautiful faculty when it is used consciously and appropriately. The problem arises when thinking becomes compulsive, when it runs constantly in the background of your experience, when you become so identified with the content of your thoughts that you forget who you really are. The key is to recognize that you are not the thinker. You are the awareness in which thinking happens. Just as you are not the emotions you feel, but the space in which emotions arise, you are not the thoughts you think, but the consciousness in which thoughts appear. This recognition is the first step toward freedom from the compulsive mind. As you begin to observe your thoughts more closely, you may notice something remarkable. The thoughts that seem so important, so urgent, so real, begin to lose their grip on you. They become like clouds passing through the sky of your awareness, present for a moment, then gone, without leaving any trace behind. This is not about suppressing thoughts or trying to have a blank mind. It is about recognizing the space in which thoughts arise and dissolve. It is about discovering that you are not the temporary mental formations that come and go, but the eternal awareness that witnesses them all. Who is it that is aware of thinking? Who is it that can observe the mind's activity? Who is it that can step back from the stream of thoughts and watch them flow by? This is the question that points you toward your true nature. When you ask yourself, "Who am I?" the mind immediately wants to provide answers. It will tell you that you are your name, your profession, your relationships, your history, your beliefs, your personality traits. But these are all mental concepts, temporary identifications that exist in the realm of form. They are not who you truly are. The one who is aware of all these mental formations is beyond them. The witness consciousness that observes thoughts is not itself a thought. The awareness that contains all experience is not itself an experience. This is what some traditions call the self with a capital S, the I am presence, the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness. Different words pointing to the same reality. This witness consciousness is not something you need to develop or cultivate. It is already here, already present, already aware. It is the very ground of your being, the space in which all experience arises. The only thing needed is to recognize it, to turn your attention toward it, to rest in it, rather than in the endless stream of mental activity. When you identify with the witness rather than with what is witnessed, everything changes. The thoughts that once seemed so compelling, so important, so real, are seen for what they are. Temporary movements in consciousness like waves on the ocean. You realize that your peace, your happiness, your very existence does not depend on any particular thought or mental state. This is a profound shift in identity. Instead of being the person who is always thus, inking, always analyzing, always trying to figure things out, you become the presence that is aware of all thinking. Instead of being caught up in the drama of mental activity, you become the silent witness that observes it all with complete equanimity. From this place of witnessing, you can use thinking when it is needed and let it go when it is not. You can engage with thoughts when they serve a practical purpose and remain unaffected by them when they are simply the mind's habitual chattering. You discover that you are not at the mercy of your thoughts. They are at the service of your awareness. The observer, the witness, the awareness that you are is not personal. It is not your consciousness as opposed to someone else's consciousness. It is the universal consciousness that appears as individual awareness, the one consciousness that is expressing itself through billions of apparently separate forms. When you rest in this witnessing presence, you discover that you are not isolated, not separate, not alone. You are connected to all life through the shared ground of being. the common source from which all consciousness arises. This is the beginning of the end of the illusion of separation that causes so much suffering in the world. Now let us turn our attention to something even more subtle and profound, the space between thoughts. This is not a theory or a concept, but something you can actually experience right now in this very moment. As you continue to observe your thoughts, you may begin to notice that they do not arise in a continuous stream. There are gaps, pauses, moments of silence between one thought and the next. These gaps may be very brief at first, so quick that you might miss them if you are not paying attention. But they are there, always present, always available. This space between thoughts is not empty. It is not a void or an absence. It is pregnant with potential, alive with presence, saturated with peace. It is the source from which all thoughts arise and the destination to which they return. It is the eternal now, the timeless dimension of your being. When you rest your attention in this space, something magical happens. The compulsive quality of thinking begins to diminish. The mind begins to settle naturally, like muddy water becoming clear when it is allowed to be still. You discover that you can be aware without thinking, conscious without mental activity, present without any mental content at all. This space is not something you create through effort or technique. It is already here, already present, already available. It is the background of all experience, the canvas on which all thoughts are painted, the silence that gives meaning to all sounds. All you need to do is notice it, recognize it, and allow your attention to rest in it. At first, you may only be able to perceive this space for a moment before the mind pulls you back into thinking. This is natural and normal. Do not be discouraged. With gentle persistence, you will find that you can remain in this space for longer periods. You will discover that it is possible to function in the world while remaining rooted in this stillness. The space between thoughts is not a place you go to. It is what you are. It is not a state you achieve. It is your natural state. It is not something you become. It is something you recognize yourself to be. When you truly understand this, the search for peace ends, because you realize that you are peace itself. In this space, there is no problem to solve, no question to answer, no goal to achieve. There is only the pure being that you are, the awareness that has always been here, the presence that is your deepest nature. This is not a spiritual experience. It is the recognition of what you have always been beyond all experience. As you become more familiar with this space, you may notice that it is not separate from the thoughts that arise within it. The thoughts and the space are one movement of consciousness, like waves and the ocean. The thoughts are not obstacles to the space, they are expressions of it. The space is not threatened by thoughts, it contains them all with perfect acceptance. This understanding transforms your relationship with thinking. Instead of seeing thoughts as problems to be solved or eliminated, you see them as natural movements of consciousness. Instead of fighting with your mind, you learn to rest in the space that is always present, allowing thoughts to come and go like clouds in the sky of your awareness. The space between thoughts is always accessible, always available, always here. It does not depend on any particular condition or circumstance. It is present when you are happy and when you are sad, when you are busy and when you are at rest, when you are alone and when you are with others. It is the one constant in the ever-changing flow of experience. The ego, which is the false sense of self created by identification with thoughts and mental concepts, has a deep need to think constantly. It believes that its very existence depends on mental activity, on analyzing, planning, remembering, imagining, and commenting on everything that happens. The ego is not evil or bad. It is simply a case of mistaken identity. It is what happens when consciousness becomes identified with the content of the mind, rather than recognizing itself as the awareness in which all mental content arises. The ego is like someone who has forgotten they are dreaming and believes the dream is real. From the ego's perspective, stopping thinking is death. This is why there is often resistance when you first begin to observe your thoughts and rest in the space between them. The ego will generate more thoughts, more urgent mental activity, more compelling stories to pull you back into identification with the mind. You may notice that when you begin to find peace and stillness, the mind suddenly becomes very active. It may present you with important problems that need to be solved immediately, urgent worries that require your attention, or fascinating insights that you must not lose. This is the ego's attempt to maintain control, to keep you identified with mental activity. The ego creates repetitive thought patterns, mental loops that go around and around without ever reaching a resolution. You may find yourself thinking about the same situation over and over again, replaying conversations, imagining different outcomes, analyzing every detail. This is not productive thinking. It is the ego's way of maintaining itself through mental activity. One of the ego's favorite strategies is to create problems that only more thinking can solve. It will present you with complex scenarios, difficult decisions, and challenging situations that seem to require extensive mental analysis. But often these problems exist only in the realm of thought, not in the reality of this moment. The ego also loves to make you believe that you are your thoughts, that your thoughts are important, that your mental activity is necessary for your survival and well-being. It will tell you that without constant thinking, you won't be able to function in the world, that you need to figure everything out, that you must always be mentally active. But this is not true. The most appropriate responses to life's challenges arise not from compulsive thinking, but from the clarity and wisdom that emerge when the mind becomes still. When you are present, when you are connected to the space between thoughts, you naturally know what to do in any situation. The ego's thought patterns are often circular and repetitive because they are not actually designed to solve problems. They are designed to maintain the ego's sense of existence through mental activity. The ego would rather have a problem to think about than no problem at all, because without problems, without mental activity, the ego feels like it is disappearing. This is why trying to think your way out of overthinking rarely works. The more you think about your thinking, the more thinking you create. The more you analyze your mental patterns, the more complex those patterns become. The more you try to solve the problem of compulsive thinking with more thinking, the more entrenched the problem becomes. The solution is not to fight the ego or to try to eliminate it, but to recognize that you are not the ego. You are the awareness in which the ego appears, the space in which all mental activity arises. When you rest in this awareness, the ego naturally settles down. When you identify with the witness rather than with what is witnessed, the ego loses its power over you. The ego is like a wave on the ocean that believes it is separate from the water. When the wave realizes it is ocean, the sense of separation disappears. Similarly, when you realize that you are awareness itself, the ego is recognized as simply a temporary movement in consciousness, not as your true identity. From this understanding, you can have compassion for the ego's activity without getting caught up in it. You can observe the mind's patterns without being enslaved by them. You can allow thoughts to arise and pass away without taking them to be who you are. This is the beginning of true freedom from the compulsive mind. Presence is the antidote to compulsive thinking. It is not something you do. It is something you are. It is not a state you achieve. It is your natural state when you are not caught up in mental activity. It is not something you create. It is something you recognize and surrender to. Presence is the power of now, the aliveness of this moment, the awareness that is always here. It is not dependent on any particular thought or mental state. It is not created by thinking and cannot be destroyed by thinking. It is the eternal background of all experience, the unchanging awareness in which all change occurs. When you are present, thinking may still occur, but it no longer has the compulsive quality that creates suffering. Thoughts arise when they are needed and dissolve when they are not. the mind becomes like a clear pool of water, transparent still, reflecting what is without distortion. The power of presence is that it dissolves problems at their source. Most of the problems we struggle with exist only in the realm of thought, in the mental projections of past and future. When you are fully present, you discover that this moment, as it is actually perfect. There is nothing wrong with what is happening now. The ego lives in psychological time, always referencing the past or projecting into the future. It cannot exist in the present moment because the present moment is beyond the reach of thought. The present moment is not a point in time. It is the timeless dimension of your being, the eternal now that is always here. When you are present, you are not thinking about being present. You are simply here, simply aware, simply alive to what is. There is no mental commentary, no analysis, no judgment. There is only the direct experience of life as it is, without the filter of thought. Presence is not passive. It is the most active thing there is, because it is pure aliveness, pure awareness, pure being. From presence, right action arises naturally. You don't need to think about what to do. You simply respond to what is needed in each moment with clarity and wisdom. The practice of presence is not about having particular experiences or achieving special states. It is about being fully here, fully available to life as it is happening now. Whether you are washing dishes, walking in nature, or sitting in meditation, the invitation is the same, to be completely present with whatever is arising. When you are present, you discover that life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be lived. You realize that happiness is not something you achieve in the future, but something you are when you are fully here. You understand that peace is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of awareness in the midst of whatever is happening. Presence transforms everything it touches. A simple conversation becomes a sacred encounter. A mundane task becomes a spiritual practice. An ordinary moment becomes a gateway to the infinite. This is not because anything external has changed, but because you are seeing from presence rather than from thought. The more you rest in presence, the more you realize that it is not something you turn on and off. It is always here, always available, always waiting for you to recognize it. The only thing that obscures presence is the mind's habitual activity, the constant commentary and analysis that pulls you away from what is. But even the mind's activity arises in presence. Even thoughts appear in the field of awareness. Even the ego is a movement in consciousness. Nothing is outside of presence. Everything is an expression of it. When you truly understand this, the resistance to what is disappears, and you discover the peace that surpasses all understanding. The breath is one of the most accessible portals to presence. It is always available, always happening now, always connecting you to the aliveness of the present moment. The breath is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between the voluntary and the involuntary, between the mind and the body. When you bring your attention to the breath, you are immediately present. You cannot breathe in the past or the future. You can only breathe now. The breath anchors you in the present moment and provides a refuge from the constant activity of the mind. Conscious breathing is not about controlling the breath or breathing in a particular way. It is simply about being aware of the breath as it is, allowing it to be natural and spontaneous while maintaining a gentle awareness of its movement. This awareness creates a space of stillness within you, a place of peace that is always available. You can return to the breath at any moment in any situation. Whether you are in the middle of a stressful day or lying peacefully in bed, the breath is always there as a doorway to presence. It requires no special equipment, no particular environment, no specific training. It is the most natural meditation there is. When you breathe consciously, you are not just bringing air into your lungs. You are bringing awareness into your body. You are awakening to the aliveness that is always present within you. You are connecting with the life force that animates your entire being. The breath is intimately connected to your emotional and mental states. When you are anxious, the breath becomes shallow and rapid. When you are calm, the breath becomes deep and slow. By consciously breathing in a relaxed way, you can influence your entire nervous system, bringing yourself into a state of greater peace and balance. But the breath is more than just a tool for relaxation. It is a direct connection to the source of life itself. Each breath is a gift, a renewal, a fresh beginning. When you are aware of breathing, you are aware of the miracle of life that is happening within you in every moment. The space between the inhale and the exhale is particularly profound. In this brief pause, there is complete stillness, complete silence, complete peace. This is the same space that exists between thoughts, the same awareness that is your essential nature. By resting in this space, you discover the timeless dimension of your being. You can practice conscious breathing throughout the day, not just during formal meditation. When you notice that your mind is becoming busy, return to the breath. When you feel stressed or overwhelmed, focus on breathing. When you want to deepen your presence, use the breath as your anchor. The breath connects you to your body, and the body is always in the present moment. The body cannot exist in the past or the future, it can only exist now. When you breathe consciously, you are inhabiting your body more fully, becoming more grounded, more present, more alive. This embodied presence is very important for transcending compulsive thinking. The mind tends to pull you up into the head, into mental activity, into the realm of concepts and ideas. The breath brings you down into the body, into the felt sense of aliveness, into the direct experience of being. When you are connected to your body through conscious breathing, thoughts become less compelling. They are seen as mental events arising in the field of awareness rather than as urgent messages that require immediate attention. The body's wisdom begins to emerge, and you discover that you can respond to life from a deeper intelligence than thought alone. The breath is also a reminder of the interconnectedness of all life. The air you breathe has been breathed by countless beings before you and will be breathed by countless beings after you. The oxygen that enters your lungs comes from the trees and plants around you. The carbon dioxide you exhale nourishes the plant kingdom. Through breathing, you are in constant communion with all of life. One of the most profound spiritual teachings is the practice of acceptance, of non-resistance to what is. This is not passive resignation or giving up, but rather a deep recognition that what is happening in this moment is the only reality. Resistance to what is creates suffering, while acceptance creates peace. The mind has a strong tendency to resist what is happening now, especially if it is uncomfortable or challenging. It will generate thoughts about how things should be different, how the situation could be better, how you can change what is happening. This resistance creates a state of inner conflict, a war between what is and what the mind thinks should be. But what is happening now is not happening to you, it is happening as you. You are not separate from what is arising in this moment. You are the awareness in which all experience appears. When you resist what is, you are essentially resisting yourself, fighting with the very fabric of your being. When it comes to thoughts, the same principle applies. Many people, when they first begin to observe their thoughts, make the mistake of trying to stop thinking or judge their thoughts as good or bad. This creates more mental activity, more inner conflict, more suffering. The mind that is trying to stop thinking is still thinking. The practice is not to stop thoughts, but to accept them, to allow them to be there without resistance. When you stop fighting with your thoughts, they begin to lose their power over you. When you accept their presence without getting caught up in their content, they naturally begin to settle down. This is a profound paradox. The more you try to get rid of thoughts, the more they persist. The more you accept them, the more they dissolve. The more you fight with your mind, the stronger it becomes. The more you surrender to what is, the more peace you discover. Acceptance does not mean that you like everything that happens or that you become passive in the face of challenges. It means that you recognize what is happening now as the starting point for any appropriate response. You cannot change what is already here, but you can respond to it with wisdom and clarity. When you accept your thoughts without judgment, you create space around them. They are no longer so solid, so real, so urgent. They become like clouds in the sky of your awareness, present for a moment, then gone, without leaving any trace behind. This acceptance extends to all aspects of your experience. When you are sad, you can accept the sadness without trying to change it or analyze it. When you are happy, you can accept the happiness without trying to hold on to it. When you are confused, you can accept the confusion without needing to figure everything out immediately. The ego will often resist this teaching because it believes that resistance is necessary for survival, that without constantly analyzing and judging what is happening, you won't be able to function effectively in the world. But this is not true. The most appropriate responses to life arise not from resistance but from acceptance, not from fighting with what is but from embracing it. When you accept what is happening in this moment, you align yourself with the flow of life rather than swimming against it. You discover that life is not something that happens to you, but something that you are. You realize that you are not a victim of circumstances, but the awareness in which all circumstances arise. This acceptance is not something you do once and then forget about. It is a moment-to-moment practice, a continuous surrendering to what is. Each time you notice resistance arising, you have an opportunity to soften, to let go, to allow what is to be what it is. The deeper you go into acceptance, the more you discover that what you are accepting is not really happening to you. It is happening as you. You are not separate from what is arising in this moment. You are the very awareness in which all experience appears. This recognition is the beginning of the end of suffering. As you become more skilled at resting in presence, at accessing the space between thoughts, at accepting what is without resistance, you naturally begin to bring this stillness into your daily activities. You discover that it is possible to function in the world while remaining rooted in peace. Living from stillness does not mean being inactive or passive. It means that your actions arise from a place of inner peace rather than from compulsive thinking or emotional reactivity. It means that you respond to life from the depth of your being rather than from the surface of your mind. When you are established in stillness, your actions become more effective, not less. You waste less energy on unnecessary mental activity and emotional drama. You see situations more clearly because you are not looking through the filter of constant mental commentary. You respond more appropriately because you are connected to the wisdom that lies beneath the thinking mind. This stillness is not something you have to maintain through effort or discipline. It is your natural state when you are not caught up in the mind's activity. It is what remains when the mental noise settles down. It is what you are when you are not trying to be anything. From this stillness, you can engage with thinking when it is needed and let it go when it is not. You can use the mind as a tool for practical purposes while remaining unidentified with its content. You can participate fully in life while maintaining the peace that surpasses all understanding. The transformation that occurs when you live from stillness is profound. Relationships become more authentic because you are not relating from ego to ego but from being to being. Work becomes more fulfilling because you are not driven by compulsive need but by natural response. Daily activities become sacred because you are fully present with whatever you are doing. This is not about withdrawing from life or becoming detached from the world. It is about being more fully engaged with life, more completely present, more deeply alive. When you are rooted in stillness, you can participate in the dance of existence without losing yourself in it. The ordinary moments of life, washing dishes, walking to the store, having a conversation, become opportunities for spiritual practice. Every moment becomes a chance to choose presence over mental activity, being over becoming, stillness over agitation. You may notice that when you are established in stillness, solutions to problems arise naturally without the need for extensive mental analysis. The right words come at the right time. The appropriate action becomes obvious. The path forward opens up without struggle or strain. This is because stillness is not empty. It is full of potential, alive with intelligence, pregnant with possibility. It is the source from which all creativity, all wisdom, all love arises. When you are connected to this source, you have access to an intelligence that is far greater than the thinking mind. Living from stillness also means that you are no longer at the mercy of your emotions. Emotions can arise and pass away without disturbing your essential peace. You can feel deeply without being overwhelmed, experience fully without being consumed. The stillness that you discover is not personal. It is the universal stillness that is the background of all existence. It is the same stillness that exists in the heart of every human being, the same peace that is the ground of all life. When you rest in this stillness, you discover your fundamental connection to all existence. This brings us to the recognition of the timeless dimension of your being, beyond the mind's time-based reality of past and future, beyond the ego story of becoming and achieving, beyond the constant movement of thoughts and emotions. There is a dimension of yourself that is eternal, unchanging, always present. This timeless dimension is not somewhere else. It is here, now, in this very moment. It is not something you will discover in the future. It is something you are right now. It is not a state you achieve. It is what you are when you stop trying to be anything other than what you already are. The mind lives in time, always referencing the past or projecting into the future. But your essential nature exists beyond time, in the eternal now that is always here. This is not a concept or a philosophy. It is a reality that you can experience directly when you step out of the time-based thinking of the mind. When you rest in the space between thoughts, you are resting in this timeless dimension. When you are fully present, you are touching the eternal. When you surrender to what is, you are aligning with the timeless flow of existence. This timeless dimension is not affected by what happens in time. It is not disturbed by the coming and going of thoughts, the arising and passing of emotions, the changing circumstances of life. It is the eternal witness, the unchanging awareness, the constant presence that you are. From this timeless perspective, you see that all the problems and dramas that seem so important to the mind are like waves on the ocean. Temporary movements on the surface of something vast and deep and eternal. You realize that your peace, your happiness, your very existence does not depend on any particular condition or circumstance. This is not a denial of the relative reality of time and change, but a recognition of the absolute reality that underlies all temporal experience. You can function effectively in the world of time while remaining rooted in the timeless. You can participate in the dance of becoming while never forgetting that you are pure being. The recognition of your timeless nature is the ultimate freedom from the compulsive mind. When you know yourself as eternal awareness, the mind's stories about past and future lose their power over you. When you realize that you are the unchanging witness of all change, the constant search for something better in the future comes to an end. This is the deepest meditation, the highest realization, the ultimate awakening, not as something you achieve, but as something you recognize yourself to be. You are not in time. Time is in you. You are not in the world is in you. You are not in your body is in you. You are the awareness in which all experience arises. As we come to the end of our time together, I invite you to rest in this recognition. You are not the thoughts that come and go. You are not the emotions that arise and pass away. You are not the circumstances that change from moment to moment. You are the eternal awareness in which all of this appears. The space between thoughts is not something you visit occasionally. It is what you are. The stillness you discover is not a temporary state. It is your essential nature. The presence you experience is not something you turn on and off. It is the very ground of your being. There is nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no one to become. You are already what you are seeking. The peace you long for is here now. The freedom you desire is your birthright. The love you search for is what you are. Stop, rest, be. Allow the mind to settle naturally. Allow the thoughts to slow down on their own. Allow yourself to sink into the stillness that is always here, always available, always waiting for you to recognize it. You are home. You have always been home. You are the home that all experience comes to rest in. You are the peace that surpasses all understanding. You are the love that has no opposite. You are the awareness that is never born and never dies. Rest in this. Be this. You are this. This is what you are. Now and always. Thank you for being present with me in this exploration. The words end, but the presence remains. The teaching concludes, but the truth continues. The conversation finishes, but the awareness that you are goes on eternally. In this silence, in this space, in this moment, you are free.